You sat down and you attacked the master teacher because you thought you heard something that you didn't hear. That's the first violation. You don't come in. First of all, you come in and you act like you come in peace, but you don't. You got an agenda.
Moors of men upright, independent and fearless. Dogmatized, dirty Moors, tongues cut out, left earless, cause they never listen. Dirty Moors, keep up your slander. Wu-Tang torture in your ass, hot hangers. Kidnappers, dirty Moor, torture him like Saw. 3D, 0 for 5 or 1 through 4. Or get it like 5 or 6 with a fez on jigsaw. Leather face in a turban, rip dirty Moors lips off. Disrespecting the mother Ras Mariah Bay. Wrap him up like double crochet, the barbed wire way. Throw him off a bridge or feed him to the piranhas. Yellow journalists more spread nothing but propaganda. Idi Amin Bey, treat the temple like Uganda. Dirty Moors like foreigners, crush the dust like ganja. Not worthy of being Moors, we call them dirty Nehesus. Solomon Seal spell command 72 demons to get you.
This is what the temple guys actually said. That Canaanland is not a part of North America. Canaanland is bigger. Yo, it's ignorant, man. I mean, come on, you're talking about the same landmass. Canaanland is actually bigger than the landmass they know as the corporate United States. Almost twice as big. And if they had any sense, they could just go to Google and they can type in North America and find out North America goes all the way up to Green. But they're ignorant. They don't want to do that. They just dealing off emotion.
You might hear hoarse voices, see frog faces, and hoops for feet. Demons we run with, spit fire with gold wolf teeth. Keep playing, forget back teeth. New Moors are an issue. Get Ginsu. Maybe a dream visit from Ishnu, a nightmare to never end and always continue. Cold as an igloo, dealing with my trust issues through vigilance. Active Moors are militants. SPLC dirty Moors call that sovereign citizen. Lying for views. They notice all the empty pews. Benz need gas and fixing, but not enough dues. Pigpen Bays sell you out for peanuts, claiming that we nuts for teaching birthright street level, keeping it beat nuts.
To any members of the NFTA that's out there listening to what I'm saying, please get it through your head. I don't have a problem with the NFTA. I got issues with people.
Stay surrounded by feathers. Dirty's guilty of fraud if dually scrutinize their ledgers. Getting proclamations from Morocco, disrespect us. Corporate city only recognize people's court jesters. Hand in their back, Moorish puppets and minions. Never get the human rights recognition like Moors near Virginia. Commonwealth, for active Moors knowledge, the Commonwealth. Dirty's claim more, but really on the straw man health. Authenticating a birth certificate, that's not significant. Still a little more two status syndicates. In more face, watch them two more status Indians claiming Turtle Island are lying, so intricate.
Long days and long nights. But this message needed to be heard.
Shalom, Moors. Peace and love to all the Moors worldwide, wherever you're at. Allah is the greatest. Allah is the greatest of planners. And I went on the email today and I got an email from non-Canadian, like non-Canadian. Hell is this? Like, what the hell is this? Who is this? Somebody obviously knows, because not too many people talk like that. So open up the email. Brother that's in so-called BC, discovered the family of more science, studying Prophet Noble Drew Ali. He's giving thanks for the knowledge, and he's in BC and help him on his journey and freedom from the crown and talk in certain ways. I'm like, hold on a second. Aboriginal, First Nations, what do you mean? What do you mean a First Nations knows about? So we've been trying to tell Negroes forever blacks, coloreds, Africans, Caribbeans, West Indians, whoever, about this. And the story of how even Noble Drew Ali even came up to be amongst this individual in the First Nation was enough for me to just, you know what, we never talked before anything. Made the call first day, today, ever since yesterday. Was building with a good sister yesterday. Today we had our audit meeting, and there's been this theme of energy is really what controls everything. Vibration and frequency. Forget anything else that you thought controlled something. So the energy said, we have to put this down right now. We have to let it be known right now, just because we have time, because there's a snowstorm outside. So we're trapped inside anyway. So we might as well get it in. So you already know I had to call up my Moor to help out. And on the phone, we also have Brother Bruce, who is basically going to tell the story. Where you could start is you could start with the individual you were just talking about and the stories he was telling you and stuff like that.
Islam. Yes, well, I have a friend that I met here in BC that was working, and he's from Mexico. And he was having some issues with the government, and they deported him. But as he had 3 days before he was deported, and I tried counseling him and comforting him and giving him a safe place to be. And he told me about the Prophet Noble Drew Ali and the fact that we are all Moors, and the fact that he discovered this information while he was in California watching a confrontation between the Los Angeles Police Department and another individual who happened to be a Moor. He was being abused and assaulted. And there was another man in the crowd that told my friend from Mexico, we need to get out of here because, you know, none of this is going to work for us. When we can't fight, we can't do anything to help the police with the crowds and stuff like that. And he explained to my friend about the Prophet, and everything started to snowball from there. The news went from all the way from California, all the way up to British Columbia, into my world, and then I ended up running into some information and seeing your videos and sending you an email.
Now what? You're right. What did your Mexican, so-called Mexican, because we know if he knows about Noble Drew Ali, we know he's a Moor. So
that's what he said.
Yeah. So what did he relay to you in the time that he got to tell you about this? Like, what was his message to you with regard to Noble Drew Ali, Moors, and then his connection to it being quote unquote Mexican?
It was a very, very fast amount of information in a short amount of time. And it started off with, he was thanking me, and he said, did you know that the reason that we're here is because the universe wanted us to be together, and that you were intended to help me because we're all brothers? And I said, yes, of course we are. He said, no, you don't understand. We really are all brothers. And he said, there's a man, and he pulled out a book, and it was, it's had a 7 on it, and it said the Quran, and it looked like a homemade printed book, but it was, I don't know where he got it, but it was a prophet's book. And he said, this is the book that I've been studying, and the information that you're being lied to. You don't understand who you are. You don't understand where you're from. You don't understand your nationality. And I think that's why they deported him, because he still had months to go on his work visa. But something changed, and he had he was being, yanked out of the world that he knew and sent back to his homeland, which was heartbreaking, really, because the amount of information that he had. The personality that he had was one of the kind of man that would share the knowledge without looking at you like, I don't like you because your clothes are dirty. I don't like you because you didn't shave. Mm. He didn't care. He had such a golden heart that I didn't know the man that well, but something made him drawn to me. And the information he gave about the nationalities, how the programming and the indoctrination that we've all gone through blew my mind, because he was only in his 30s and I'm in my mid-50s. Yeah. I couldn't believe the amount of information that he was giving me. But the thing was everything he said fell right into place.
Yeah, resonated with you.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
It froze my beliefs and let me reject the lies. And now it's a hard path to walk when you start to carry the truth, because you're stripped away of all the luxuries. And
before you go to there, could you talk about, as far as from the First Nations perspective, and that program they had of keeping you away from the truth with regard to the residential schools and things like that, since you were there, so people have a perspective as to the truth.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing that the lack of knowledge and the ignorance that we're fed by the spoonful. And the thing is that because we don't know any better, we take it in and we hold it like it's ours. And it's hilarious. I just heard a reference concerning the knowledge that we have and the way that we think is kind of like somebody puts a ball and chain around us and tells us that's yours, take care of it, and we actually fight to defend that, because that's mine. No, it's not mine. It's our slavery. It's what's holding us back. It's what's keeping us down. And the fact is that we've got taken away from our families when we were young. Happened to me. Ended up in schools where they're just children prisons, and there's no schooling, but you get taught and force-fed through beatings and abuse the Bible. That's all they care about. Is they don't give a shit about teaching us grammar, math, science, history. None of that's ever been on the table for me, except for a shit kicking and a total beating because I wouldn't stand up and pledge allegiance to the Queen. That's kind of hard for them to understand, that how can a child that's less than 8 years old know the difference between that? So we need to show the class where they drag myself, the young pupil, into the front of the room and beat the hell out of them. And when you got a nurse and a guy in a black robe beating on you because you won't swear to some bitch that's on a picture in front of the classroom, well, something happens when they do that, because either the whole class falls in line, or there's a subculture built instantly. And I'm grateful for the beatings. I'm grateful for the abuse that I suffered, because it only built a fire that can never be put out. Unfortunately, I didn't have a way of harnessing that. I didn't understand, and I was oblivious to. I was more or less like what they wanted. I turned into a complete young savage, and I didn't understand how to break the yoke that they put on me, and it was impossible to see it, especially when all my elders were afraid to say anything because of what was happening to us. We were getting taken away. The families, the male representative of our family would be beaten and taken off to jail. Yeah. All because we said,
sound
no,
familiar?
You can't have my...
That sounds very, very familiar to the quote unquote black experience.
Oh my goodness! I can't tell you how share that.
How's the black people not gonna say they're not indigenous when there's somebody right here who's indigenous, who, according to him, knows that we're connected to the Olmecs?
Yes. When I look in the mirror right now, I have the same facial structure as them, and I can go through I can drive in any direction for 15 hours where I live, and I can run into the same facial features, the same bone structure, the same mannerisms, and none of these people know each other. But I travel a lot, and I run into certain individuals on different reserves, if you want to call them reserves. I call them landlocked prisons, but the thing is that some of the people who rebel against any new information, it's kind of like when I show up, I've learned not to tell people anymore unless they're willing to tell me what they want, because I'm tired of being rejected and labeled as a heretic in some respects. But the experience that I had is they teach us to be self-loathing, self-hating. And I used to be able to speak my language, which is a Salish dialect from the Squamish Nation, and we used to have huge celebrations, and it was funny how we never knew it was illegal. We never knew it wasn't allowed until all of a sudden 300 cops would come and kick the shit out of everybody and arrest everybody and take away everything, and all you ever saw after that was crying women, and it was like a fucking war. But it wasn't a war in the actual fact, because we didn't have guns and we didn't do anything wrong. We were just celebrating, and we'd celebrate with people all the way from up country all the way down through the states. We had people from Arizona, California, Mexico. Everybody came up for celebrations. They call it a Sundance down in Arizona. We call it a powwow up here, or potlatch. And but the hatred that would be enforced upon us would cause everyone. And I'm a victim of it. I kept my mouth shut. I was scared, and even now I'm scared every day. It's because I live in fear of what's going to happen next. What's going to happen tomorrow? The way the Crown likes to do things is they wait till 2:33 in the morning when the lights are off, throw a few flashbangs through your window, and arrest you for not complying to their rules. It doesn't matter that you didn't do anything wrong. They'll find a reason.
And that sounds directly related to the quote-unquote black people's experience.
There's been people that have come here from, they landed, for whatever country they came from, they landed in Newfoundland or Toronto, and worked their way towards the West Coast because the weather's better out here and whatever. And I've connected with these people just through strict karma. I mean, I didn't make friends with them because they had money or they were poor. It didn't matter. We just became friends. And months go by, and then I go to visit them, and suddenly the front door's kicked in. It's all damaged. The place is empty. Shit's all thrown all over the place because they were searching for something. These are men and women that didn't do anything wrong. All they did was attend church. They were, studying whatever religion they happened to have at the time, but they started to wake up and started to realize, and they became a threat. And the violence that was inflicted on them, the family, they seized the kids after they became Canadian citizens, which was the biggest mistake they ever made. And to see the man after 4 or 5 months, where his eye is permanently disfigured because he got beaten and kicked, and they let the dogs bite him. And the names that the neighbors said that they were calling him and stuff, I said, well, don't get upset that they were calling him names, because that's their tools to keep the man down. Don't worry about that. What you need to do is support him as best you can. When he's out, we need to help him. He's not going to have any money. He's not going to have a job. He's not going to have a place. We need to find somebody that'll protect him, and it's us. We can't look for other people. We have to help them ourselves. And
let me ask you.
Who your friends are.
Yeah, let me ask you this question too. What from the Aboriginal Indigenous teachings perspective and the Moorish Noble Drew Ali teachings perspective, what things were relative to you to make you see that it's the same thing?
Well, it's the fact that I'm still researching and still
as far as where you are right now, what you've researched thus far.
Right now, besides being in complete awe of the knowledge that that man has, and has shared and given, the legal information of him exposing the fact that the Crown here in BC knows fucking damn well that they haven't got any rights to tell us as nationals what to do, but because they come in with guns, and I mean, we just had a roadblock of the Wet'suwet'en Nation in British Columbia trying to protect their territorial lands from having a pipeline put through it. They had 6 cops on every unarmed native that was there protesting and keeping the gas company off the land. They had between 5 and 6 cops beating the shit out of these guys. They only arrested 14 people, but it was minus 15, minus 20 at the time, so there wasn't a lot of people there. And they waited till one of our elders, one of our chiefs, matriarchs passed away, and waited till everybody was at the funeral to come and break this up. I think I got off subject there.
No, it's all good. But yeah, what you saw was relative between the indigenous teachings.
That's what I was trying to get at. The prophet is shown, and it's on paper. It's undeniable, indisputable. The facts are there that we are all being lied to. We just need to learn what it is that he's teaching us. We need to understand it. We need to hold it against our heart and keep it there. We don't need to have any more false information. And that's the thing, is that we can make mistakes, but we have each other to support each other as long as we keep understanding the teachings. And when it's the nationality, when he tells us that the first thing we need to do is declare our nationality, I can't tell you how important that is when I'm trying to find out who I am and how my people got here and how my people lost everything. It's all because of our nationality. All because we've been denied.
Speaking about being denied the nationality, could you talk about the meeting with the Indian thing?
Okay, yes. Well, there was a large meeting of families that all got together many years ago, and they started saying, how can we keep getting called Indians when we all know we're not Indians? Indians are from India, and we all called ourselves something different, but we all used our own languages to say it. And I myself, I'm a Salish man from the Squamish Nation of British Columbia, and British Columbia is something that was named. We never called it that. But our families, and a lot of families, when I was a child, got together, and they all decided that we need to call ourselves something of our own picking, our own choosing. And we recognize the word Aboriginal as a world title, as a an origin, and that started off back when there was a huge problem in Australia with the Aboriginals being shot and killed all over nothing. And you talk about unarmed, peaceful people. The Aboriginals are more kind there than most people. Like, they're like Hawaiians. They'll stand there and welcome you, and are amazed that you want to hurt them. And when they stood up, and the families all voted to call themselves First Nations and to refuse to be called Indians. But then the Canadian government made them an ultimatum. We'll take away your native status, which is not called native, it's called Indian status. And now they've got a new thing that's called a certificate of Indian status. What a joke. But because they're saying, if you don't have this card, you're no longer considered in our eyes native or an Indian. Well, that's fine. You can take that card and file it if you want. I don't, But that's when we started recognizing the fact that we were using a title that was given to us by somebody else, which removes and extinguishes our right and our nationality. And we haven't really recovered from it. And I'm telling you that it's a long, hard, uphill battle for trying to get my brothers and sisters to understand the community itself. We're all sucking on the tit of the queen for substance, for support. And if we try to do anything off the so-called reserve, well, you nobody has the understanding and knowledge. Like I'm 50, in my 50s, and I don't really have a hell of a good education. I don't understand grammar. I don't understand anything. Whatever I learned from comic books and TV, and I say that with a smile. I laugh about it. I wish I had a better knowledge. I've met kids from China and India that blow my mind at the knowledge that these young people have, and it's because they were taught at home. They were taught, like, we're all, you and I are being denied a proper education.
Right. Well, this is where it comes in with you know, especially with having Brother Yusuf on the phone too, to
Thank you again.
show that there is progress happening, even though we might not see it. It might not be directly around us, you know what I mean? But
it's a slow burning fuse.
Yeah.
And I say it because I myself, if this is the Yusuf that I've been listening to and studying, I want to thank you, man. And it is through the hard work and the bravery and the courage that you and your brothers and the rest of the people in the Moors stand behind and stand upon it. I thank you on behalf of anyone that's just learning this, because it is invaluable. It is a life-changing experience when you start to hear the truth. And when you start to understand it, something starts to grow inside you that was so small and so stomped out that it's going to be a hard path for each of us to cross, to travel. But the thing is that when we get together and we can stand strong.
Right.
The fact that the teachings of the prophet and the people, if the only way to get it out there is through YouTube, you guys are doing it right. It isn't falling on deaf ears. I do want to admit that I get right fucking pissed off when I see some of the comments underneath.
Yeah.
But then I realize, it isn't. That's exactly what those shitheads are trying to do. They're trying to dissuade people. They're trying to, and it's a sign of weakness when somebody attacks any information that you're putting on video. That's a sign of weakness. And I mean, of course, my immature side wants to say all kinds of stupid things. But what did the prophet say? Don't say anything. Don't hold your courage. Don't say anything bad, and don't rub it in their face, because that totally diffuses all the ground that we gained.
Right.
And when I myself hold back on the stupid comments and realize what's happening, I grow every day. I gain strength every day, and that's when I'm finally able to stand and use the information I have. It's going to be like a fucking hellfire for anybody that gets in front of me. And I mean, I don't want to, like I mentioned to you earlier off the phone about the young man from New York and Taj Tavak. All the information I've been accumulating over the last 7 years, it's been a slow burn, because you have to filter through what you're listening to.
Right,
you have
for
to
sure.
use it.
For sure. Well, that's also part of the the challenge is wanting to be self-aware.
Well,
really embracing.
I call myself wide awake.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I'm wide awake without all the benefits and privileges. And it's a cold room, man.
Yeah, it is. That's why we look at everything metaphysical. So when you look within and you start from within, that's how you stay warm, even though the room's cold.
Well, I haven't traveled out of this area. I've traveled across Canada, so-called, and down throughout North America. But I've had friends that have gone to Tibet, and they came back different people. They said, you know, the one thing I didn't understand was there's no wood to burn. These guys don't have heat. They don't have running water like you and I. He said, you know, the guy breaks down crying, and he said, Matt, I want to apologize for all the shit my ancestors have done to you. And I'm like, look, you're wide awake now. The first thing you need to do is just stop doing it.
For real.
I'm not going to forgive you for something that you didn't do to me, but you know, I apologize for hating you because you happen to be from Britain. Okay, like let's get over that. Right. The first thing is that we have to love each other, and you know, the guys, you know, understanding that he can't go on the same path as I am, and I'm going to be on a different path. And the thing is that he's the reason I'm here. Right. I mentioned to you that I was grateful that he gave, you know, first thing he did was, you know, show me that video of Taj talking about something as far as the crash of the economy back in 2011. And I ate that stuff up, man. I was running around like Chicken Little. Holy crap, everything's going to shit. And, you know, luckily for all of us, it didn't go that way. But I think that was a little bit of a learning experience for me. Yeah. And, you know, there's this same guy, you know, he gave me a DVD called Rage Against the Machine. And only one song in that whole thing really resonated. And that was, you know, the billboard says, come and play, forget about the movement. And I didn't even blink an eye when I heard that. I knew exactly what that meant, and it changed my life. And I realized that I was a victim of colonization, and we, you know, from a lot of people can't understand what it's like to walk while being in the light of the racism and the hatred. Mm-hmm. A lot of people can't understand that. I've had people apologize to me that I don't even know, and they say, well, you know, you seem like you've been through a war. And I said, well, you know, I survived a lot of shit. And, you know, there's a lot of elders, because the residential school started such a long time ago, and the abuse, it was unthinkable. And that's why I don't believe in their God, is that if their God allows them to do the sick, fucked up things that they did to me, how could that be? How could that? None of my gods ever wanted that for us. And we can have that kind of abuse in our world. If that shit ever fucking happened, that guy was taken out and eliminated. But we never had jails in our society. We've never had jails because we always had justice. Yeah. We never taught people hatred. If you know, we used to have huge games of lacrosse, and that was a gift from our gods. And when we played that game, it pleased our gods. It pleased the Creator. And we did it with so much joy. Sure, there was a lot of fights and beatings and stuff, but that's sports.
Right. Yeah. That's what they have today. Yeah.
I believe that ever since I heard the information about the Prophet, that I've taken leaps in knowledge and forgiveness and understanding. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't have done that. I would still be in the same spin cycle of stupidity had I not understand what this man was teaching all of us. I mean, the fact is that I look at it this way as a metaphor, is that he's patting us on the back from the great beyond and telling us it's not going to be okay until you do something for yourself.
Right.
And we all, I'm sick and tired of people judging us by the color of our skin. And the fact that he's explaining to everybody that the words black we've been lied to about the word black all through school. Yeah. And, you know, I used to tell people, I don't know why you call me a red man. My skin's not red. You know, it's, you know, I've never understood how it is that, but we've all been brainwashed and lied to, and for good reason, because these guys have got this fiat money that they keep using against us and forcing us to use, and it's all a joke. They're all sitting around in a room, I don't know, I jokingly think, you know, this is like Scrooge McDuck sitting on a pump. And, you know, I'm grateful for the knowledge. I'm grateful for the brotherhood. And, you know, I'm so glad that there are men like yourselves that are looking at the rest of us and giving us as much help as your heart can. And it's, you know, like I say again, and it's not going to stop, but I'll thank you guys on behalf of anyone that's just starting to understand this. It's if it wasn't for the men like yourselves putting this out there, I don't know where the hell I'd be. I really don't.
That's love. Well, Brother Yusuf.
I'm still trying to get the paperwork in. I still want to, you know, it's always there for the taking. Yeah. We just don't know how to take it. We don't know how to do it. We're sitting there walking on our knees with our hands laced together, begging again. And, you know, once we start realizing how to help each other, then it's going to change. Right. It's not going to be overnight.
Right. Brother Yusuf, you had anything to add in or questions?
No, he's pulling it down right now.
All right, bro.
I give thanks for him explaining exactly how he's explaining it too. Like, because a lot of people need to hear exactly, you know, this right here. You know what I mean? How this happened, the same story, you know. For a lot of Moors, this is gonna, you know, sit with them like, wow, this stuff is really going on. You know what I mean? You know, for the so-called, you know, go ahead.
Well, the thing that really brought the strange journey of information, kind of like a leaf in the wind, and the wind was the prophet, and the information is the leaf. And it started off falling on the shoulders of some man in California, and he put his hand on the shoulder of my friend from Mexico and told him about the prophet, and explained to him who the Olmecs were, who the prophet was, the information he's learned from Egypt. And that kid understood more. I guess he had an open mind, but he found a Moor who was loving enough and caring enough to tell him the information. Then that young man came to Canada, came up here to work for some reason. I don't know why he would come to the northern part of British Columbia where it's fucking cold. And, you know, he's not used to this cold at all. But for him to enlighten me in a split second, in a 30-minute conversation, I was looking out the window of my truck, and I stopped, pulled over, and gave this guy all the time he needed. And everything he told me, it was shocking. It shook me, man. It shook me. It put me in a place I'd never been before. And it gave me a fear in my stomach, because now I knew I was letting go of all the lies. And to the experiences of all the people that have suffered, it can't be explained, and it can't be forgiven. And, you know, with Yusuf, you've been giving so much help to people. I don't know how people are ever going to give you the love back. It's you know, all of you guys are doing so much good for all of us that it's unbelievable. I'm so grateful. I really am. And when we have these issues up here through the First Nations people, they're starting to understand there's a small group, it's a small movement, and it's difficult to spread the word around. And the thing is that I believe that I was given the information for a reason. I was given the guidance for a reason, and one time, and I'm pushing hard. I'm not giving up. I mean, every day. I'll joke with you guys, but throw your TVs in the garbage. Stop watching TV. Start studying more. And, you know, if you can, I mean, you don't have to accept the words of the prophet unless you believe it. And once you start understanding and you meet with other people who have that information in their heart, it'll start to make sense. It's not going to be overnight. Like I said about the young kid in New York, he's only been doing this for 7 or 8 months, and he is so lit up with so much energy that, like I say, he started off talking about the Parsi syntax language, and within a month, the information that he was putting forward changed completely to reading the Quran, reading the 7 circles and reading so much information. The kid was just excited.
Yeah.
And that got me listening to him. And I've contacted him. He's been busy for a while. I haven't heard from him since probably November. But that's okay. The kid, he's what everybody wants. Somebody that is open-minded and understands. And he put his heart on his sleeve. He said, "Hey, this is who I am. I've done mistakes. I've made bad choices, but that doesn't mean anything now." And he wants to help his family. He wants to help his family's friends. He wants to help everyone, and he's doing what the prophets. He's following the path. Yeah. And for me as an Aboriginal First Nations, I've been trying to, I've been following the laws, jumping through hoops and doing all kinds of stuff, but it's all been a failure because they're just patting me on the head and ignoring me because, number one, I'm a ward of the Queen in their eyes.
Right.
And once I
right. So that's the same thing with us, where
yes,
we've had the colonization and we're trying to convince them that we're not black.
Oh, I know, and it's impossible to keep screaming at them to stop, because they just seem to have more power, and it's always through guns and violence.
Yeah, but that's the only power that they really have.
I've been exposed to a lot of the leaders in the past that were trying to do a certain movement through Islam, and I'd ask my elders, I said, why are they hurting that guy? All he's doing is just preaching their religion to his people. Why are they hurting him? And my elders are like, well, it's because of what he's saying is going to destroy the control they have. And I never understood what the hell that meant. Mm-hmm. And now I understand totally, because I'm being targeted by the Crown's police or private army whenever it's because I'm, if let's just say I was arrested today, they wouldn't let me communicate with anybody else. They keep me in a private cell all by myself and try and dehydrate me so I die in custody.
Right.
That's just, besides the beatings I'd probably get. But the thing is, they never let me speak and share this information. And only because of I happen to be brown-skinned. Had nothing. If I happen to be one of their people, that there would be probably a pat on the back and say, "Keep up the good work."
Yeah. Well, this is even where
the Moors of America. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, brother.
No, go ahead, bro.
Because of the Temple of the Moors of America and the Moors science, I should say, it's amazing. Once you start getting, it's like a warm blanket put on top of you after you come in from the cold. When it's the love and the feeling of safety that I have after just reading the book. After just reading, and I keep rereading stuff because I want to absorb it, and I want it to be true to myself. I don't care. I'm not telling anyone. Like I said, I tried telling some friends recently, and I was sharing that with you before we were doing this call. That my friends are now rebelled against it because it threatens everything they know, and they're upset by the information, but only because it makes sense to them, and they don't know what to do with it. And I was there. I still have moments where I'm scared. What am I going to do? How is this going to work? Where do I go? But that's why I made an effort to email and saying I'd like to join the Science Temple and reach out to brothers Moors in this area where I live. Yeah. And if I have to, I'll move to the bigger city in order to keep this going. I don't need to be out in the bush where I live and living in a town of 2,000 people, and I don't have a single friend here.
Right. Yeah. Remember too that with regard to the direction that you're coming from, the Squamish Nation has their welcome figure to let you know that you're Moors. So you know, us doing this even is showing Moorish unity, because now it's not just you talking now.
No, it's not.
Right? You're speaking from, you're not speaking from the residential school victim perspective, just like we're not speaking from the came over here on a slave ship perspective. We're not even going there. Right?
I don't believe that. I think just like Yusuf's thrown off that title, I've thrown off that title, and we were carrying on now. We've picked up something different, and we're carrying it in our hearts. And with the Squamish Nation, there are a lot of people down there that are more enlightened. And it's a struggle because they're a small group. But the thing is, just like you said, our welcome totem has a fez on it. There are people that are, if they have to get the information out just by carvings, then that's how they'll do it. But it causes people to ask, and they point at it. Look at that. I wonder why that's there. And then they ask, and then one of us will tell them. Well, that's because we're all brothers. And it's amazing. I don't disagree that we have a struggle ahead of us, but the struggle is real.
It is definitely real. Now, you're also talking about when we were on, before we got on, you were talking about how you got the information was just how your forefathers received the information through word of mouth oral history. Just speaking about how the word traveled to you and the connection of the oral history, and then some of the things that your elders told you as far as the parables or the, you know, the lessons that stuck with you, even though you went through all the attempted and violations of your psyche and your mind and your psychology and everything else that belongs to you. Because I have to say that you know, like ourselves, you know, we recognize that we've come a long way. But being here now, we know that we made it.
It's a new strength for sure.
Most definitely a new strength. And
it's something that helps you with the breaking away, and it's not, you're not physically breaking away from something, but you're actually learning something that's been denied and kept secret, and it's that's the sickening part, but it's empowering. For myself, I still pinball around with anger and rage and pissed off about when I start to learn the truth, but that isn't that's a human reaction to realize that we've been tricked. It's, you know, and the worst part about it is that it's, for me, learning everything through the verbal, because you know, I could use an example. While me and another guy are in handcuffs in the back of a van, this didn't happen, but I'm just using it as an example. He tells me a story and I tell him a story, and that's how the information is passed on. And it's the same way with all of our people, whereas the colonizing people have to write stuff down, and they change the rules and they change the history to fit whatever works for them to keep us stupid. And that proclamation that was made by that King George or something like to that effect about we don't need to teach people, we don't need to teach these indigenous guys anything. We have enough of our own people. We just need to keep these idiots stupid and let them go for their mortgages, and then when they can't pay, we'll take their homes, we'll put them on the street, then when they can't survive, we'll put them in jails, and we'll just keep this going on, and we're going to make bonds every day about everything they do. Every mistake they make, we're going to lock them up, put a bond out, and then we're going to trade that bond, and we're going to keep the money that is all being made. We're never going to share that with them. We're just going to keep that to ourselves, but we're going to make sure that they never see the light of day when it comes to the facts of what we're doing. And if they ever do, we'll put so much information out there that will make them look stupid when they start talking about it. And if they try to share the information, well, we'll make sure that the people that they do try to tell that to, if they even start to lean towards that, well, we'll make them suffer. We'll take away benefits. We'll take away things from them to make them scared. And so most of us all live in fear, like child services, the RCMP, Revenue Canada, all the bullshit lies and stuff like that we keep suffering every day. When I look back at the wasted years that we've all followed the path of, and ignorance doesn't mean that it's our fault. Ignorance is just the term that says that we were not informed. When we all keep fighting, and I keep struggling with making mistakes, telling my oppressors, this is what I'm doing, you can't do this anymore. Well, it's kind of cute to them, and they're never going to give me the freedom that I'm asking for until I actually figure out how to do it. And that's why I say it's a struggle. It's a long, hard path. I got papers and papers. I must have spent, I've got stacks of papers that I've written out all myself of all kinds of crap. And now I know I'm going to be throwing it all away once you keep learning all the wrong things because that's the only information they keep giving us.
Right.
And it's all misinformation. But when you hear the truth, well, the truth is short and sweet.
Exactly.
It doesn't take hours and hours and years to learn, because I don't need to know legalese. I don't need to know the Criminal Code of Canada. I just have to follow the Prophet's teachings and the common law of the land. But it's a cold, hard path, like I said.
Yeah.
And we have got the struggle of, I've got, my brain is racing with all the memories. I'm trying to think of something that I could talk to you about that's relevant without trying to share any, stupid nonsense of the mistakes I made and whatever. But I met a guy out of, he's a Scottish noble that's rejected his title and stuff like that. His name's Scott Duncan, and he's a bit of a hard guy to talk to because he's highly intelligent. So if you say something ignorant to him, he slams you down. But he says, I'm part of the people that you should hate. I'm part of the group of people that programmed all of you, and you haven't got a clue what you really have, and we took everything from you. And he goes, I swore I'd try and help the Aboriginals of the land. And but he's really not doing a very good job of that. But that's because I don't really think he meant it.
Right.
I think he was trying to make himself feel good.
No. Have you had that part of it where there actually were some Europeans who, were in favor of, quote unquote, truth and reconciliation?
Oh, you brought up a really good subject, one that is I'm glad you did that, because it's right now I live in the middle of the province of British Columbia, and there's a pipeline going through, and we've had all kinds of movements. I don't know more, and the highway of tears, where our young women are being kidnapped and murdered and disappeared, and this truth and reconciliation is supposed to solve all the issues of the abuse and the deprivation of our rights and our knowledge and our history and our culture. And I haven't seen one sliver of that. And I've asked about it. I've said to him, I go, well, if you're opening the door and you want us to come and cry in the middle of a fucking gymnasium to counselors and stuff like that, we don't want that. What we want is what we had before you came. Well, that's never going to happen in their opinion. But our people are definitely taking it 1 foot at a time, 1 foot of land at a time. They're when they get together, they have a strength that's unmeasurable. And the thing is that, boy, I'll tell you, if you've ever seen some press conferences where this, our culture is run by, if it wasn't for the women, I don't know what the hell those guys would be doing except for arguing all the time. Thank goodness for them. But they've actually tried the truth and reconciliation, and from my perspective, as the people that they say it's supposed to help, is never reached me. And it's never reached anyone, and I know a ton of people. I could say honestly, if I had to go through 1,000 names and families, not one of them has been helped. And quite honestly, nobody cares about it either. Like, if you guys want to talk about truth and reconciliation, well, the government's the only one that's talking about it, and they're the only ones patting themselves on the back. The people themselves, the victims of the colonization, the rape and the molesting and the beatings and the murders, their voices are silent.
Yep.
It's just a fact of life. I mean, the individuals all throughout the lower North America that are Moors, I mean, Jesus, the stuff that's happened to our people as a whole is all done in the name of their God, and their country and their government, their queen, and what have you. I have a quick thing just to change the subject. They came and landed, and they said, "Look what I found." Meanwhile, let's just say I stand up from the bushes from behind where I was picking berries, and I go like, "What are you doing?" "Oh, this is mine now." And they put a fence around it, and then they shoot me because I say, "What the hell are you doing?" Well, I have my analogies were all my young days and my teenagers. It was like, well, if they can do it, well, why can't we do it? I'm going to walk over to this guy's house and kick his front door and say, "Look what I found. It's mine." And then, so what's good for them isn't good for us is what I started to learn at a young age. And it's the struggle of, I've seen some people, getting evicted from their home. The first time I ever saw a foreclosure was the most violent thing I ever seen, because the so-called people that were there supposed to protect the citizens, if you could use the term, were beating the shit out of them. And the first time I ever saw somebody get hit with a black club and seen the blood that happens when you get hit in the head. And I was a child at the time, and that the violence of the government using their force against unarmed, peaceful people living in their home. And if they only knew about the United Nations Declaration that, we all have inalienable rights, and they weren't given to us, we have them. And that's what the prophet teaches as well, that we have something that was given to us and it can't be taken. Thing is that the funny thing is, how come we're never taught about this stuff? Well, obviously we don't want, and I use the term with respect and not derogatory, but all of us are slaves, and they don't want smart slaves, and they don't want us thinking. They don't want us understanding. They just want you to shut up. And I can remember when I was in my early 20s, all I wanted was a job that paid for 8 hours a day, that I could have a tiny shithole house, and I wanted to live close to where I worked. And the brainwashing was perfect at the time. It worked really well because that's all I wanted. I didn't argue, and I was just happily plodding along like a blind little fella, never seeing the truth. And I think that a lot of people, yourself, Yusuf, and a lot of other people are really, really understanding that fantasy doesn't help any of us. It just keeps us in the same position, running in circles, never getting ahead, and then we die.
Could you talk about what you've learned from RV Bay Publications?
Oh, that is an unbelievable wealth. It's a gold mine. I mean, I don't think you could read every article in 1 year. It would be impossible unless you're one of the people that have a photographic memory. But the information that man and his organization, the people there, I can't thank them enough. I hope they hear this, that I'm grateful for the fact that they take the time to put that website up and put the information out on YouTube. They're helping people without question, to start off with getting their nationalization cards and the rules. I've downloaded pages and pages of this stuff, and I haven't finished reading them. it's impossible to take care of the household and keep reading. I'm just joking. I say that with a smile. Every time I try to look for information, I keep coming back and finding it there. And it's not a surprise to me anymore that if I need something, I'll start looking for it there. And if I have to, I can always call. They have a phone number. And the same thing with your information video for the temple in Toronto. I have their phone number as well. And if you have questions, leave a message and they'll get back to you. It's not always somebody's there, but RV Bay, the information goes back for years. I mean, it's like a catalog of information, and it's hard to stay focused on one subject when there's so much information being given. Starting off, if he ever, I hope he never gets sick. I hope he just keeps the strength. I hope he stays healthy and keeps putting out information. And we'll all have to have a good laugh when he starts at the beginning and starts redoing the videos again, because it's amazing to see how young he was when he started. And
well, RV Bay, and so RV Bay Publications is a matriarch by the name of Rosmariah Bay.
Is that right? Thank you for telling me.
Yeah, so if you've seen any of Sister Roz's videos, that's who that is.
That's incredible. Yeah. And that's obviously true. If it wasn't for the mother, we wouldn't have nothing.
Now, speak about that. The honor for the mother, or the matriarchal concepts of the First Nations.
Well, it's been an absolute effort by the elders to keep it alive, and you can see that it's an absolute effort by the Crown to stomp it out. Now, we got a gentle matriarch style of passing on knowledge and information, and then the jackboots of the Crown stomping the shit out of our elders and assaulting them and trying to silence them. So we would lose 90% of the information that was there for our culture. But the thing is that the young men, and I've been teaching this and counseling this since the time I was about 14, when I finally understood that if it wasn't for the women in our culture, there's a reason that when you go into a room and you find 10 or 15 of them all sitting around talking and making sweaters or making blankets or preparing a meal if it happens to be for a funeral or whatever. It's all the elderly ladies of our culture are the reason that we have so much understanding and so much openness to taking in information, because when you look in their eyes, you see generations of love and understanding and acceptance. And it's all in their eyes. There's no words spoken. It's directly look right in them. And they look at you, and they can take the most angry young brother and humble him just with a look. And to watch a young, angry man frustrated because he's got so much anger and hatred because he's being stomped out every day. Nothing. He can never succeed. He can never do what he wants because he's being held back. When we happen to fall in the graces of our aunties and our nanas and our mothers, when we're in the room with them, they start teaching us about our heritage. Or if they don't teach us exactly about the heritage, it's to stop, take a breath, and look inward and look towards our families. And those are the young people that usually turn into the young men like yourselves, where they have the knowledge and they take the time and they reach out to each of us. And I think it's a continuing of our heritage and our knowledge, and it's all through each of us. And it all starts with the women. And it's an unbelievable, beautiful thing. And like you say, I had no idea who RV Bay was, but now it makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's something that it can give you another thing to be proud of.
That's facts. No, I just want to also, if you had any questions, you could, if you have any questions that you have, could ask them. Chat, people might have some stuff, but yeah, whatever you got.
Most of my questions are technical.
All right. Once you're able to put it on the record, we'll either talk about it or we'll
if it's a good topic, if there's a bit of a disconnect on how things can start off with, as far as declaring our nationality. And the thing is that, of course, anybody that really wants it will keep seeking and keep running into the paths of information. And I'm still, I've got a pretty good grip on things and understanding. So my thing is that when we have young fellows like yourself helping us, there seems to be a bit of an issue when you say we've got to get our trusts in order and stuff like that. We don't know where to register the trust or how to do it. It's
So things like that is part of there's so much information that's out there as somebody coming into this, right? So
yes, exactly.
Yeah, so there's going to be subject matter that is accessible but might not be operative at the time because it's not in the sequence of your learning.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So based on how you're getting this information, not everything that comes at you is going to be something to put 2 days of study worth on.
Oh God, no.
You might just have to put that down for now and focus on what it's really about, which is just correcting your mindset.
Yes, I see what you mean.
Nothing's wrong with trusts and setting up corporations and doing whatever, but 5 weeks in, 1 year in, 3 years in, that should be the last thing on your mind with regard to this.
Yes, that's it. I think you said that earlier as well, and you said it in other meetings as well. You need to study and learn what it is, and learn the heritage and get your nationality. After about a year, it really becomes clear.
Yeah, it's gonna take some detox.
Quicker, but it can't be.
Yeah, exactly. And we get it that people want it quick, and it's not something that's an illusion. It's feasible to get it quickly, but we're not there yet, so let's stop playing around.
Well, that's exactly the truth too. I've been bouncing around, starting off over 7 years ago, and running down dead ends, realizing that I was told a bunch of bullshit just to keep me finding the truth. I was told, certain procedures and what have you by certain individuals that just want, these are the kind of sociopaths that just love the attention and don't intend for any of us to get ahead.
To get ahead, right? But the shield or the protection stones or whatever to bat them off is having more knowledge than them.
That's right, and that's
because
where I'm
once you have knowledge, they can't play you. They could try, they can attempt to, but then it's on you if you choose to get played or not.
Well, that's the biggest thing, is that now, because of speaking with people and listening is a big thing. But when you start to hear any kind of liar, you know exactly after 2 syllables that this guy's full of shit, and you don't even give him any more time.
Exactly.
And, in our culture, some of the wisest people are the silent ones.
Yeah. Yep.
But again, I'm sharing the struggle, sharing the knowledge by receiving it, and my best hope is that soon, without putting a time limit on anything, that I'm able to have a day where I feel as good as you guys do.
Yeah. Oh, you'll be there. You'll be there. The whole point is, like you said, reading that Quran,
yes,
rereading things in there, things that stand out to you that are gonna eventually change you, because you're gonna go through the process, but with who you are in the context of the Aboriginal Indigenous side.
Yes.
Right.
Well,
like meeting with those people and saying, hey, listen, and put whatever it is on the table for them to review, for them to whatever. If it's not that, then it's about you dealing with it for yourself.
Yeah.
And evolving as a being. And you already know you got Moors now. You know what I mean? Like, you can hit me up anytime. You know what I mean? You can get other Moors emails, other Moors numbers, and at least be able to be in contact with people who are on your frequency now. If it turns out that everybody's residential school drone and they're not waking up. You know what I mean? But if there's ones that you can work with, those are the ones that you're gonna pull and use them as the nucleus.
And the strength that we have is, just like you said, to reach out to each other.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that, and thank you so much.
Well, that's no problem, bro.
It gives a certain amount of security to know that, and because there's times I will admit that even just recently, it's a feeling of isolation and despair, because wondering if this is it's going to work. And it's again, that's colonial brainwashing creeping into my mind. It's breaking the yoke, and it's a difficult thing. But it's I've gained strength today just having both you men on the phone with me today. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Well, no problem. This is part of the covenant. When you get the chapter on the Holy Covenant, you see our brother in adversity, assist him.
Yes.
Because that's the only way we're gonna get out of it.
Yeah.
It's like
arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder.
Exactly. It's knowing who the real enemy is.
I wonder if only we were able to see this in the past. If we could have stomped out this bullshit ahead of time, man, would we be something? I mean, the society in it as itself, when you look back at some of the communities that the Moors built, it's unbelievable that we have to live in the squalor and we're able to continue with the same way that the Moors had built in the past.
Yeah.
I want to live there. I want that lifestyle. I want that the joy and the peace that they had.
And what we tell Moors is that that's what we have to create if we want that.
Yes.
If we want that, then let's create that.
Exactly. And for us, it's a struggle of trying to get my family to understand that we don't need their permission to do anything.
Right.
At all. For any reason. And I'm not talking about rebellion or revolution.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about when we walk out the door, we do what we want. And if we all stick together, then they're not going to be able to pull us over. If we got 12 cars in a row all traveling down the road, and they want to pull us over because we don't have their insurance plates and registration. Well, fuck them. You know, they can't. We don't pull over. And if they want to, you know, jokingly, that's being a little militant, I know, and it's usually exactly what they want. And I've always tried to preach, you know, don't fall into the path of what they want. Don't do it. But I mean, it's difficult.
Yeah. Because of, you know, people, they've already made an example of. So we already know what they're capable of doing, which was part of the whole point of them doing that, to have us in the position that they could do whatever they want, and we won't say put the bat to their head or whatever, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
but like you were saying
you said it earlier, which was so true, that they have, you know, they're experts at keeping us in check.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, they go to college to learn this. They don't teach us that, but they go to their college. They go to Yale. They go to fucking MIT or whatever it is, and they teach them how to keep us. But you know, I see the things. I see the change. I can see it in the air, and it's a slow process.
Yeah. No.
But again, thank you guys. Thank you so much.
This is what we're supposed to do. You know, and again, we will that our people would be looking at this how you are. That they'll be jumping on this, because like I'm saying, you're telling me, you know, about somebody from Mexico who knows about this. And they put you on. You know what I mean?
And it was all under extreme stress and threat of violence that each one of these men shared the information. Like I said, the information was given first to my Mexican brother by him standing in a crowd watching the cops beat on a man for no reason, for a traffic stop, for a goddamn, you know, traffic infraction. And it was, you know, comply or die type rule.
Right.
And the innocent bystander tried to calm the Mexican fella down by telling him, don't be afraid, let's just remove ourselves from the situation. We can't change this right now. We have to change it through knowledge. And then him coming up here and being violently evicted from his home and reaching out and my finding him and comforting him and giving him safety, and him sharing that knowledge with me was an unbelievable life-changing moment for me. And it was, you know, just like having the covers thrown off you and suddenly now you're blinking in the bright daylight. And it's if anyone down in North America and any other individuals across the land called Canada, if they actually hear this and they understand what we're saying and they start to wonder, or they have a curiosity as to what a Moor is, and if they are one, you know, to have a friend and a stranger tell me that I'm from the Olmec people because of the facial bone structures that I have, and to see that in every nation from Alaska down through Washington and to California, to see the same bone structure, it's obvious what it is, and it's amazing that that type of history has been stomped out and silenced and removed from the books. But if the young people like yourself start to hear this information and they understand that even Aboriginals are feeling the same struggle, and even though the First Nations are you know, up here in the deep snow, we all have the same thing. If they experience that want for the knowledge, they're going to find out how good it feels to know it, and it's going to change their life. It's going to make them understand that they've been lied to, and once they start reaching out and going to temple and phoning in and talking to young fellows like yourself and learning from what you say, and every day, you know, you weren't hit by lightning, but the thing is that the knowledge that you have a need to share it. And I'm doing the same thing, only in small amounts and only what I'm sure I can give.
Right.
But, if more, I'm going to be I want to see a sea of fezzes. I want to look out like a field covered in dandelions. I want to see black and red fezzes everywhere.
For real. Oh, speaking about that, since we already know, because we have the totem up right now. But speak about the Fez and indigenous culture.
Well, I don't really know a hell of a lot about it because it's been denied or not understood. It's kind of like we've come across, and I'll use a term. It's like we've seen a cave painting, but nobody understands who put it there or what it means. But it is there. It's not that you can't deny it.
Okay, let me ask you this then. Being that you're getting into this information about Moors and realizing what the Fez is, how do you look at the Squamish welcome totem? Like now that you have this info now with Nobu Juali and all that and that.
Well, I will share with you that I keep rereading some of the actual quotes from the prophet where he says, if you call yourself Indian, know that you're a Moor and you're not an Indian. And the thing is that when I see that totem and when other people ask me about that, I can see that it's the truth and that it's telling you something and all you have to do is ask. The one thing that's missing is somebody to explain it. That's all I thought. That's the only thing that I'm finding is that there's a lack of a voice telling what the hell it is. But it's there, and the carver that did it, I haven't contacted him at all. But the thing is that I've seen it on other ones as well, up the coast and into the Charlottes.
Oh, for real? So there's more? There's more?
Yes.
Oh, for real? Okay.
And the thing is that they're small amounts, but the thing is they're strong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whatever they know, they have it figured out.
Right. No. What about the as far as the indigenous councils of elders or chiefs or anything? How together is that? And
well, right now it's disconnected and it's polluted with government people that have been put there by the government. So the actual true voice of our nations is never heard. It's always put in, you know how they have that are put there and they never really are the voice of the people. We have the same thing here where we have members that are voted in and they have nothing to do with it. They're not going to speak for us. They don't have any interest in our benefits to help us get ahead or break away. They're just there as the mouthpiece for the crown. And so that's, I'm disappointed that I have to tell you that, but it is, there's a big disconnect from the reality of what people have to live with every day on the reserves and off reserve.
Yeah.
And there's new rules coming in. The voices that are speaking for the people and speaking for the families and speaking for the heritage, they're heard, but they're only heard in small communities. You never see any. If there's ever a march in Vancouver or Toronto, where there's a whole bunch of people, the media always portrays us as just stupid shitheads beating on a drum. They never talk about who these kids are, who these women are, who these men are, and what it is that they're trying to do. That's what I see. I may be wrong, and I'm happy to be corrected.
No, let's take for example the small meetings that they do have that nobody hears about. Do you know some subject matter of those type of meetings that the people are talking about relative to whatever it is that they're going through, so we can sort of make, you know, be the voice of the voiceless, if you will.
Mostly, I don't get to attend a lot of them. They're always never scheduled, and they're never. It's within, you know, a small amount of people, of around 20 people,
Yeah.
and it's all about economics for us right now. Because, like I mentioned to you, if you really want to stand up like me, then you end up isolated, and you don't get any services. You know, if the services weren't in place before, you can't reapply for them because you're now cut off. You're shut off. There's no, unless you had savings, you know, you're fucked. You don't have any way of making money. Like, the government's now changing the rules on the Aboriginals, on the First Nations people, forcing us to get certain cards and, you know, to force us to take benefits, but giving up our rights. Which,
just with regard to that, what about the position of, until stuff gets right, reservation of rights when you're contracting with the de factos?
Okay, when nobody in the community is using that, not because of they don't want to, it's just they haven't got a clue on how to use it.
Right.
And they're
like, for example, that's you know, if they, so let's say they are telling people, in order to get healthcare or whatever like that, you need this card to say Indian healthcare, right?
Yeah.
Being that you're in your own land, you can exempt certain things in the contract. Like, you don't have to take it as they're giving it to you, sign it, and give it back. Because if they're going to ask you to sign, then they're contracting.
Yes.
And if they're contracting, you have a right to challenge everything in the contract. Yes,
that's true, and that's exactly the way contract law works.
Right.
The thing is that if, like, the Witset Nation that's near me, there's about 2,000 people living on reserve, and probably another at least 2,500 off reserve. And the Squamish Nation, for example, there's probably 5,000 members minimum, and there's probably well over 150,000 of them. But they all want the rights and privileges that come with the benefits of being a status Indian,
right,
that the government gives. And not when I try to explain that they're giving away their rights and stuff like that, well, they're not in a financial position to walk away from the situation.
Mm-hmm.
When I explain to them about that, where you write on the piece of paper and use your lowercase name, don't use the uppercase full capitals,
right,
and make sure you write all rights reserved, without recourse,
right,
without prejudice. Well, then they come back, and I see them a few days later, and they're like, well, they denied my application because I wrote that on there. I said, well, then you tell them, show me the policy that states I'm not allowed to do that. And they give up real fast,
right,
and they turn around and go back.
Part of the indoctrination, the colonization.
Thank you. That's exactly it. I'm grateful that you understand that.
Automatically, their defense is go back to the whatever, opposed to stand up. It's like the guy who they had this image of two dudes digging, and one.
Well, back in the 80s, and it's amazing that the government keeps saying that they're helping us, but when they started giving out these things called status cards to become registered with the government in order to avoid paying taxes, You used to be able to go anywhere in any store, and I mean any store, and if you showed your Indian registration card, you didn't pay the provincial sales tax, you didn't pay the federal tax, and all you had to do was sign a piece of paper. But now stores say that they don't have to do that, and that you have to pay the taxes. And believe it or not, inch by inch, millimeter by millimeter, if I could use a metric term, people have accepted it. It's kind of like the frog in the boiling pot, you know, bringing it up to a boil. My people and my family have not argued and not stood up for their rights because they don't understand what they have.
Right.
The ones that do know their rights and that are standing up for themselves are doing what you and I spoke about earlier. First, they tried to help their family. Then they got shit on by the family. And now they've shut their mouth and they've just kept it to themselves. And when somebody like myself reaches out to them, they're very cautious about sharing the information because they don't know who the hell I am and what I want. And with I do write on everything that I reserve all rights on everything. And it pisses off more people. And I've had paperwork rejected because of it, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Because it's all on if you watch a goddamn movie, if you go to Walmart and buy a cheap $1.99 DVD, first thing you see on it is a big goddamn warning and all rights reserved.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's amazing that people would use that, and it's unbelievable. If they only would read what does all rights reserved, or what is without prejudice mean in Black's Law, 4th edition. They would find out that is their strength and their shield to protect themselves, and it protects you from being taken advantage of and being a victim.
And this is the purpose of Noble Drew Ali telling us that we have a nationality.
Oh my God, that's exactly right.
To get us into the status that we can make this argument now. You can't make the argument as Negro, Black, Colored, Indian, Aboriginal, Indigenous. You can't make the argument as that. No. But again, the brainwash has them giving up before they even start. Which is why, again, we're going back to the thing of it's really going to be about self, and those who are of your like mind that recognize the direction that you're going in.
Well, it's like carrying a velvet hammer. You need to understand what it is you have in order to use it.
Right.
And I found that the more I tried to give the information to somebody that didn't want it, well, that's kind of like throwing somebody in cold water on you when you're sleeping. They don't like that. They don't want it.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's a small understanding when it takes a bit of curiosity on the man or woman that wants to know it. But boy, oh boy, when you find that individual, it's kind of like a starving individual. You know, they want so much information at once.
Yeah.
And I'm the same way. I have a lot of desire to learn and understand. And you know, when you talk about learning to, I've got right now, I'm looking at a stack of papers that I've written up and typed up and all kinds of stuff about declaring my estate, declaring my heritage and stuff like that. And I'm thank God I didn't send them off, because the government of Canada has a rule that if you send it once and it's not worded the right way, they'll send you back a letter saying, we will no longer accept any correspondence from you from this point on.
No, that's really because they've got to the position where they got to the position where they are actually everybody's trapped.
Yes. Well, I just got a property assessment letter sent to me last week, and I sent it back with the name crossed off because it wasn't complete. And I wrote on it to return to sender, and civil litior mortis, the wrong person, refused for cause, quo warranto, which means, you know, by what right do you do this? And I wrote on it, notice, all rights reserved without recourse, all consent withdrawn, rescission of all contracts seen and unseen, and this is a fraudulent bill, and I return your abandoned paperwork, and this is Exhibit A. I haven't heard back from them, but the thing is that the government has a certain way of dealing with things. Once you start to understand what you're doing, if you word it the right way, they'll accept your paperwork, and then they'll send you a letter saying, we understand, you know, great, you're doing what you want, you can go off and do what you want, and then they destroy all the records so that nobody else can find them, and nobody else can copy what you're doing. And the only way that it can be duplicated is if I teach them that. And, you know, starting off with them learning about that they have rights, and that it's inalienable, that if you want to use the charter, the Canadian charter, just remember that that's for the government, not for you. And if you want to be a Canadian, well, then you can't be a national. That's why even my YouTube channel is non-Canadian, because I'm not. I don't want to be.
Right.
And there's not one Aboriginal that can say they're Canadian, because the government, the Queen, has never invited us to be one. But they are presuming it. And after 1985, they passed the Canadian Charter that makes all of us standing here on Turtle Island agents of the Queen, and she has given us. But
that's why, because they're claiming that they're on Turtle Island when this is Morocco.
That's right, because we've been told that.
Right. So, but by going, so that has to the only reason why they have the whole jurisdiction thing is because they're still saying something that these people aren't going to recognize that's what this is. Right. Even if they say Turtle Island and they got some oral history that's what it is, that's oral history. What's it say on the books? When you check the books, you find out that there were Barbary states in America. If you check the books, you find out that Egyptian pharaohs are buried over here. If you check the dates, you find out that over here used to be part of the Moroccan Empire. Yes. So if over here is part of the Moroccan Empire, then the Aboriginal Indigenous people here must be Moroccans or Moors, and we move forward from there.
It only takes one generation to cancel out a history. If they deny the history that we had, it only takes one generation, and my grandchildren are oblivious to who they are or what they are, and you can't tell them because they don't understand and they're too young. But if we could go back, I've asked my elders back in the 70s, how did we get here? What made us come here? And how come we don't have the same things as the Egyptians? And you know, this was because I was a curious kid, but if they only knew, if my elders only knew that they were Moors, right now we wouldn't be in this problem.
Right, it's the same thing with ours. We say the same thing with ours. The only difference is that ours knew and they sold out.
Well, yeah. Does that have anything to do with the Willie Lynch thing?
Well, when we look at the Willie Lynch, that was some fake letter created by a brother.
Yes, exactly. And then there's you know, unbelievable, just like the prophet says, you know, watch out for dirty Moors. You know, that they'll put us right back in the same spot that we started without even thought.
Right. So for example, the people would look at the Moors and say, well, you know, how come the Moors are not part of the supreme laws of the land and the Constitution if they helped establish the U.S. and 13 colonies and all that? Well, the fact of the matter is that these Europeans had to go to Moors to even have somewhere to stay called the 13 colonies.
Yeah, exactly.
And everything that a European has Everything that a European has, they got it from some dark-skinned person who taught them. From the godly things that they have to the most devilish things that they have. Everything they learned from us.
There was a press conference back east, and a news reporter who happened to be a European asked a stupid, ignorant question to one of the sisters that were at the podium, and the sister had the wherewithal to contain herself, but was very angry, and she said, "You were homeless when you came here 500 years ago. You have nothing. You're still a guest and a trespasser here." Yep. And I stood up and cheered. I was so happy when she said that, and I shouldn't be happy about that, but it's about time.
No, you should be happy about that, because people need to be standing up.
Well, and it's there was the disrespect that was trying to be forced upon the speaker was so blatantly ignorant that luckily the sister had the strength. And she did not let it go. She was like, "Get out of here. You are done. Like, I'm in charge here, not you."
No. Let me ask you a question again. Because we have these people who look like us, right?
Yep.
That say that they're Black Indians or that they're American Indians.
Yes, I've heard that for many years.
Yeah. Could you speak on the fraud of being an American Indian or a Black Indian, and why they should gravitate toward being Moors instead of Black Indians and American Indians?
Well, I can only speak for the knowledge that I've been given, and it's always been limited and happily put in front of me like a plate of food I didn't ask for. And I never understood it, but the thing was that for many years, I did register and accept the titles that were given, but they were never given to me by my people. They were always given me by the church or the school or the government agency, and I never understood what it was, but I didn't understand it, so I accepted it. And to really understand, like, I've never had anybody show me in a dictionary that the word black means pale. And I was blown away when I started reading it, and that's all to do with the prophet says, study the etymology of the words, and that will show you the lie that is being done to you every day. Never mind the billboards that are fucking telling you that the Super Bowl is on this weekend and you need to get a case of beer and a pack of hamburger. But the fact is that the more education that we have concerning that, calling ourselves Black Americans and Black Native Americans and stuff like that, it's being injected into conversations all the time, and it's confusing. For myself, I had an interest on the internet that was called Pinterest. It was just some bullshit thing to pass the time, but it kept having all these things pop up because of my interest in certain Native culture, right. Aboriginal culture, and it would come up all the time. Black Americans, Black Native Americans, these are the real, and none of it was real. None of it was any foundation, and I actually started looking into it, and this was before I heard about the prophet and any information. This was a couple of years ago, but because it was too much to take, I didn't accept it because it seemed outrageous that it couldn't come from a true source is what was frustrating for me as trying to seek it out to find the information, because it would always end up either running in circles or a dead end without explanation. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but it's frustrating that people, if they're so quick to accept, and I'll put this in before I stop on the subject, if they're so quick to accept being called black, why is it so goddamn hard to say that Moors is an acceptable title? And right. It's not a title; it's a nationality. And for me, it's going to be a way of life. I don't care what anybody else says. If that offends them, well, I apologize. But I find it frustrating that if they can accept these these derogatory terms and titles and wear them with pride, fucking tattooing their bodies and branding themselves as with pictures of Geronimo on a horse with feathers and a whole full headdress. And I tell them, dude, I don't know where the hell you got that. We've never had headdresses like that. And for the whole reason, there was no goddamn eagles in the desert. You know, I mean, I've tried to explain to some of my family that where do you think they got all that stuff? The only ones that had that were anyone were in the mountains, like in Dakota and Idaho and whatever, where there's lots of Rocky Mountains. That's where you can get all the eagle feathers. Otherwise, I don't know where those feathers came from, except for the Hollywood dress set. And it's my hope is that. With you could bring this up again, and I hope you do. How come it's so hard for you to accept that you're a Moor when you're so fast to stand there and say that I'm a black man? No, you're not. And please stop saying that. I don't believe that, and I hope you stop believing it too. And if you want to, let's all read together. What is the word black? What does it actually mean? And if they're in the same room with me, I'll say, do I look like I'm red to you? Because that's where I get called by the customs agents. Oh, the red man, that right there in the corner. He's all, listen to him rant and rave. I'm not red, buddy. I've been brown my whole life, and that's always the way to be. I didn't know I was a color.
Right. I hear you.
But I'm sure that you run into it, and that you have individuals that have come to you and said that they're black, and it must be a tough one to try to tackle for conversation.
No, that's where they are. You know what I mean? It's not even like I'm trying to do anything. If they choose to think that they're a crayon, then that's up to them. You know what I mean? I'm only gonna tell them so much.
I've never heard of an Egyptian or an Aztec guy, or even the Mayans, or even the Chinese use color to describe themselves.
I don't want to
call themselves.
Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I'm getting I'm just in the chat right now, and somebody wants to discuss something or whatever. But we're live on YouTube, so you can go there and tune into the rest. It's called Canaanland Moors, Indigenous First Nations, and Noble Drew Ali.
Excellent.
Right, so it's live on YouTube right now. If anything, give me a call tomorrow. I should be home, and it was good building with you again. And
thank you again.
Just make sure you keep in touch. Make sure you keep in touch.
I will, and thank you, Yusuf. I appreciate everything you guys are doing.
I appreciate you too, bro.
Okay.
All right. You have a good night. Islam.
Bye-bye.
All right, so we cut off our stuff for you, so you better be on something. You better be on something. I got something to do in a little while. But for now, we'll see where this goes.
Hey, I ain't gonna keep you waiting. What's going on?
Peace. You're live on Canaanland Moors.
Hey, Canaanland.
This is the first.
What's the confusion?
This is the first time. This is the first time that we ever had somebody on the call in. So you're popping your cherry right now. So let's go. What's good?
That sounds suspect.
What's good? What's good?
What's the confusion? Let's talk from man to man. So what is the confusion? Are the Moors mad because you have other colored people who do not choose to identify as Moors? Because I have my family records. Hold on. I have my family records. And my family records say that not only are we Indians, but what nations and tribes we come from. So are you telling me I should denounce that to claim that I'm a Moor?
No, we're saying that you're a Moor. What do you tell it? What do you mean says who? You're dark skin, right? Are you dark skin? Are you dark skin?
So let me ask you this.
No, I'm asking you. Are you personally? Are you dark skin?
I'm not dark skin. No, I'm not dark skin.
What do you mean you're not dark? So you're European?
So somebody who's light brown or
that's dark. That's dark. I mean, dark comes in shades, right?
Well, so if we don't talk and use these words.
No, what words? What words? We're both speaking English. We're not using any words.
What words? So if we're speaking English, let's use correct terminology.
Well, we are. You said, yeah. Well, that's why I said if we're not dark, then we're Moors, because we can't be. We can't. What do you mean? Who's a Moor? Any dark-skinned person, especially an African Negro.
Says who? Who came up with it? My people didn't identify themselves as Moors. We have peace treaties, the Constitution.
Where'd the Constitution come from?
Indians.
Which Constitution?
They don't say Moors.
Which Constitution?
They don't say Moors. It says Indians. Indians created the Constitution.
What Constitution are you talking about?
The Constitution of the United States, and not only that, our own Constitution that we have in our own nations and tribes. Prove me wrong.
Okay. No.
Oh, okay.
If you're
now
speaking,
next, hold on, because you had took a while to took a little pause. Now,
what do you mean? What's wrong with taking a pause? Something's wrong with taking a pause?
Go ahead, Canaanland. I'm gonna let you talk. Go ahead, because we're gonna be respectful towards each other. Go ahead, brother. You talk first. Go ahead.
Nothing's wrong with taking a pause. You were talking.
Okay. Well, like I was saying, this person that you had on, I believe you, well, not you. You had people in your chat or live chat co-signing what this dude was saying. Ain't no such thing as a black Indian. When for one, if you look at the United States Census, they thought they was slick and tried to reclassify our people as black and Negro, when in the laws of the land, a Negro is an enslaved race. So how you gonna turn a free people into an enslaved race and then try to give them a story that they came out of Africa? So no, we're not us Indian people are not going to accept that. We're not Negroes. We're not an enslaved race, and we're not going to accept no shit that we come out of Africa. We're not going to accept that we're black.
But you're gonna accept that you're descendants of the Olmecs, though, right?
We're Indians.
No, hold on a second. Hold on a second. So are you gonna say that you're not a descendant of the Olmecs?
For one, were there many other people here besides the Olmecs?
I didn't ask you that question. I'm asking you, are you saying that you are not a descendant of the Olmecs?
I'm a descendant of Muskogees.
Okay, and who are Muskogees descendants of? Because Muskogees weren't the first people here.
They were Moors.
The Muskogees weren't the first people here, so who were they descendants of?
Then who's the first people? You don't know that because you weren't living back then.
What you mean? Everybody knows the first people in the Americas were the Olmecs.
Oh, if you're saying
everybody knows it was the Olmecs. Everybody knows it was the Olmecs. Everybody knows it was the Olmecs. No, nobody's arguing. Everyone knows that the Olmecs. If there were people here, hold on a second. If there were people here older than the Olmecs, that means that all of this was one landmass. So we're still talking about dark-skinned people who are Moors.
You keep saying dark-skinned people when there's dark-skinned people with different type of blood. So that makes us different types of dark-skinned people. So we're all not one. We're all not one people.
See, and that's why, and this is why, and this is why.
Hear me out. When you, Canaanland, hold on. I'm gonna let you talk. Hear me out. Because I don't have an issue personally with you, but you sound like Pan-Africans when they say.
How am I sound like Pan-Africans? I'm not talking about Africa.
I'm about to tell you.
I'm not talking about Africa. Why has Africa even come up? I never brought up Africa. Why are you bringing up Africa?
I'm trying to tell you. When you're saying,
but why are you bringing up Africa? I never brought up Africa. I never brought up Africa. So this is what I realize, right? This is what I realize. Right?
Go ahead.
If our people who have been subjugated by the same individual knows that when they came over here and conquered you black Indians, right? they knew about you because of quote unquote the Moors over there. Now, if they come over here and they see a building with a dome on it in 1492, that means there were Moors over here, and these were the first people that they encountered because the Moors were the ones who ran the ports. You guys know, as you Black Indians know, that you guys lived in the mainland. The Barbary states, as you can go research and find out, there are Barbary states. When Aboriginal and Indigenous people were here, those people had no issues with quote unquote the Moors who were ruling the ports. Because you guys choose to be.
Say that last part again, please. Say it again. One more time. Say that last part again.
Because this land is where Moors were. We
had issues with Moors, right?
I said there was no issues. There was no issues with Moors.
No, there was no issues. Okay.
There was no issues with Moors who were running the ports, because you people, the quote unquote Black Indians, you guys were in the mainland. You weren't on the seas. In the 1400s, in the 1300s, 1100s, 1200s, going down, Moors were the ones who were on the waters throughout the world. We weren't limited to one geographical landmass like certain people who claim that they're the founders of something when they never left where they were at.
Okay, so you're saying that my people, along with other nations and tribes here in the Americas, never traveled?
If you traveled, that means you're Moors. If you traveled, that means you were Moors, because Moors have an 800-year history of being on the water where nobody else is being spoken about. 800 years, nobody else is spoken about up until 1492, when they stopped calling people Moors and started calling them Indians and Black and Negroes and all these different terms that the people now who adopted those terms don't want to accept all those terms plus Moors. They're going to deny that they're Moors, but claim all the fake terms.
I have two questions for you. I ask you two questions.
Go ahead, bro.
Are you saying all dark-skinned people are one race? Is that what you're saying? That's my first question.
No, I'm not saying that, because there's only one race, the human race, and it's divided into nations, tribes, etc. So no, I'm not saying that.
We're all not the same because our blood. Everybody can't donate the same blood to each other, and that's where people get caught up. Everybody keeps saying everybody's the same. Everybody's not the same, even dark-skinned people. So I'm glad you said that we're different species of people. So you can't say we are all Moors.
Hold on a sec. But to your point, there's two people in the same family that can't donate blood to each other. So, but those people are still the same. But those people are still the same family, though, right? You're not looking at them as separate. Because the fact that two people in the same family can't donate blood to each other, right, doesn't take away the fact that they're in the same family. You still call those people by the same name because they're in the same family. So you can't use blood. So you can't use blood to say that that's the factor that is that's separating the people into whatever. You can't use that, because even in family we see that.
You just said something now. So if you're saying there's people that's of the same family, of the same blood, what would stop them from passing blood to each other? Like if you was blood related, right?
Well, whatever it is, I don't know. I never had to donate blood, but I know people who had to donate blood, and some people couldn't go to their family and get it.
And why is that?
Maybe their family had some type of disease in their family, blood disease, that they couldn't do that. Whatever reason it is, not everybody is going to be able to do that. It might be a small percentage of people that can't do that. But if we look at this from a broad perspective, like how this European's looking at it, this European's not looking at it as Scottish, Irish, and breaking down the BS. They're all one European colonial power. That's how they look at themselves. How we look at ourselves, oh, those guys over there, those guys over there, and those guys are dark, and those guys are light dark, and those guys aren't really dark, but we'll make up something and we'll call them that. And then here we are separated when all we have to do is tie more to everything that we're claiming we are. I'm not saying don't say you're indigenous. I'm saying why don't you say that you're Moors? Stop playing. Just like everybody else.
We don't say that, like I said, because that's not what our family taught us.
All right. Well, your family didn't teach you everything. There's things that you learned without your family.
You can't speak on my family because you're not my family, but you want me to take.
I don't have to be in your family. I know Moors who are quote unquote Cherokee, or whether they're Chippewa, or whatever tribe that they belong to. I know people who hold on a second. I know people who identify themselves as Cherokee or whatever tribe, but they still could say that they're Moors. So what the hell's wrong with everybody else who's not going to adopt the fact that they're Moors? They're going to deny it. When there's people who I know are Black Indians or whatever, but they'll say that they're Moors. They're not going to deny it like how you're denying it.
So if I say I'm a Moor and I denounce being Choctaw and a Muscogee,
I didn't say denounce anything. I never said denounce. I never said denounce anything. You're taking it like I'm saying denounce anything. I never said denounce anything. I said why not? Why doesn't the people who are Black Indians, Black Indigenous, whatever, say that they're Moors? And you're telling me about family records and all this stuff about why you can't be Moors when you're a Moor. What do you mean? But if you're dark skinned, you're a Moor. So how can you tell me because of some family records you're not a Moor?
I got a great question for you.
If you're not European, if you're not blonde hair, blue eyed, then you're dark skinned. Put it like that.
Okay, so what does that make you if Moors? That if you want to go by Moors and all you guys want to go by Moors, right? Then that means you're a free white person. So if you're free white persons, before you was free white persons here, you were slaves.
Why would we have to be slaves?
You know why? You know why? Because the Naturalization Act of 1870 says so. You're free white persons here. So why should I identify as a Moor who was recently turned into a free white person, but before that was a slave here?
Yeah, but you're telling me about some act by some Europeans when Moors were here before Europeans came here. When Europeans, how are you telling me about some act created by Europeans in the Americas when Europeans are colonists here? You're telling me
y'all all grouped in with each other.
No, but we're not grouped in from some perspective of hold on a second. The only reason why there's a relation between Europeans and Moors in America is because Europeans were being enslaved by Moors, not Black Indians or whatever.
Bro, that has nothing to do with what I just asked you. Why are you guys grouped up in the Naturalization Act of 1870?
What do you mean, grouped up?
It lists everybody as free white persons in 1870. Y'all just became free white persons. Why is that?
That was not for us. That was for Europeans. Why would we? You have to be. You have to be tied. You have to be tied to the Aboriginal Indigenous people of the land in order to even claim that you're a free white person.
But y'all was not. So
it wasn't for us. We were the ones that free white person was created off of. What are you talking about? That was our sovereignty they were using to claim free white person. You know, that's not some European sovereignty. You're looking at the problem with you people. The problem with you people. Hold on a second. Hold on. The problem, right, is that you're looking at the Moors and European relationship as if it was equal. They were a servant to us. They weren't freaking in no power. Or how you're looking at it like they had some clout with us or whatever like that. They had to pay crazy amounts of tithes. They had to pay crazy. They had to pay. Say that again.
No, I said I'm not looking at it like that. I'm looking at it through the laws of the land.
The law of the land. The law of the land is the Constitution. So why are you telling me about some acts that made some people Moors?
And the peace treaties. I'm giving you
the peace treaty Article 21, 22 says Moor there. It doesn't say Indian. It doesn't say Black Indian. It doesn't say Indigenous. The peace treaty between Morocco and the United States.
Don't do this, Canaanland. Don't do this to yourself.
The peace treaty between Morocco and the United States. The peace treaty between Morocco and the United States says more on there. Go read it. Don't believe me. Go read that.
Between the United States and Morocco, okay.
What do you mean?
No. You said I thought you meant, you know.
What other treaty is there? There's no other legitimate treaty. There's no other legitimate treaty. That's the first treaty that the Europeans ever had in the Americas. So any treaty that you're going to tell me that some Europeans had with some Black Indians, that's a fake treaty, because they had no power in the Americas before they got the treaty between Morocco. What are you talking about? Europeans are not from here. Europeans are not from America.
Look, this is what we can do. I'm willing to build with any Moors. You can bring me on.
You're building with a Moor right now. What you mean? What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
You can bring me in Google Hangouts, and we're going to discuss this about this free white persons and the naturalization.
Why are you going back to there? We got the dictionary right now. Where are you going?
Hold on.
We got the dictionary right here. Where are you going? Where are you going? We'll just look up free white person. We got the dictionary right here. We're Moors. We're Moors. You don't have to run. We could look it up.
I know you're Moors.
We could look it up.
I know you're Moors.
So why are you running from accepting the fact that you're a Moor? What's the problem?
Oh no! You can't include me in that because my people wasn't enslaved.
Oh, because you're a sellout. That's why. Because you're a sellout. Because you're a sellout. You guys are the real $5 Indians. You guys are the real $5 Indians. You guys are the real $5 Indians.
Natural people were not naturalized.
You guys. Why would a natural person be naturalized? When to be naturalized?
Natural people are not naturalized.
Why would
people come from the land?
Why would a natural people?
Hold on, listen to me now. People who don't come from the land get naturalized.
Okay, well, Moor means land. So if you come from the land, how are you not a Moor? If Moor means land. Hey, no. You said you come from the land, right? You said you come from the land, right? No, hold on a second. Forget all that BS. You said if you're a natural person, you say that you come from the land, right? Moor means land. So if you come from the land and land is called Moor, then what does that make you?
Moor also means officers of the court. So
why are you bringing up court? We're talking about land right now. We're talking about the fact that you said.
I'm giving you the real meaning.
What do you mean? There's multiple meanings. There's multiple meanings for Moor. There's not just one meaning.
Indian means first inhabitants.
No. Indian means somebody from India. Indian means somebody from India. Stop the BS. Because India is a British corporation. India is a British corporation. India is a British corporation. If I talk to somebody who's from, if I talk to somebody who's from over there, they're gonna say they don't even want to be Indians, and you're gonna be Indians. You guys are fakers.
When was India?
You guys are fakers. You guys are fakers. India.
When was India established?
The term India comes from Christopher Columbus thinking he was in India when he landed in the West Indies. I just told you where. Christopher Columbus. Don't tell me about India in the Americas before Christopher Columbus, because you're talking BS. There was no such thing as Indians in America before Christopher Columbus. The hell are you talking about?
So you're saying, okay,
because there were no Europeans here. There were no Europeans here. So if there are no Europeans here, how are you telling me that you were calling yourself Indians? There were no Europeans here, but you were calling yourself Indians? Stop this, bro. Come on.
Yeah, we did call ourselves. You know why we call ourselves Indians? Because we had.
You didn't call yourself Indian. Stop lying. Stop this. We just had the Indian on here telling you that they didn't call themselves Indians. Get the hell out of here.
Get him back on the line. I'll cook his ass too. Get him on the line. Get that white boy on the line. I'll cook him too.
Yo, you didn't even cook me yet. What are you talking about? Stop the BS.
I did. Because you
stop the BS.
You don't know what
This is not India. This is not India.
Indians come from India. You don't know nothing about the Naturalization Act of 1870. I guess you don't know Moors are free white persons, so that makes you guys slaves by default.
What are you talking about?
I mean, this is easy.
How are we slaves if we're free? Free doesn't mean slave. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Listen to what I'm saying, baby brother.
What are you talking about?
Before you guys was free white persons, you guys were Negroes.
How are we Negroes?
Of African descent.
What are you talking about? We've been Moors. I just told you when they came over here. I just told you when they came here, these Europeans docked their boat and they saw a building with a dome here. That's not Black Indian culture. That's not Black Indian culture. Don't tell me a building. Don't tell me a stone building. Don't tell me a stone building with a dome on it is Black Indian culture. Stop the BS.
I'm not like that. I don't know what you're talking about.
What you mean you don't know what we're talking about? You're gonna tell me about you're the first people here, but you don't know about when Europeans came here and what they saw here when they came here? Fuck you talking about?
You act like what other people say.
What other people? No, we're not talking about other people. I'm the one that asked for your number. I asked for your number. Don't tell me about other people. What are you telling me about other people? You're talking to me right now. You tell me about somebody else.
Let me ask you this. You said Europeans said it was Moors here, right?
Just remember, every time you said, let me ask you this, and you ask a question, I answer you. Just make sure you remember that. Which question didn't I answer? Which question didn't I answer? Bring it up now. Bring it up. Which question didn't I answer? Because you're playing games. But let's go again. The Naturalization Act is an act, so it's not the supreme law of the land. Don't try to quote that as law. Get the hell out of here. So don't bring it up. Don't bring it up. If you're gonna talk, if you're gonna bring it up and bring up supreme law of the land in the same sentence, you're talking BS. Bring up the Constitution.
Okay.
Bring up the Constitution. But then if you bring up the Constitution, then you're gonna have to bring up the treaty between Morocco, because you have to bring up Moors when you talk about the Americas. You have to bring up Moors. You have to bring up Moors. You can't avoid the fact that you have to bring up Moors.
Before they were free white persons, what were they?
You still bringing up some act BS. We were Moors. What do you mean? What were we? In 1492. When's the free? What date? Say that date again. Say that date again.
Before they became free white persons.
Before we were free white. Hold on a second. Before we were free white persons, in the Naturalization Act of 1870, in 1492, even Stevie Wonder told your dumbass that we were Moors.
Now I'm man. Oh, you didn't have to stoop that low.
What you mean?
Call me names.
Yeah, because you're on here for half hour talking BS. Like I'm playing around or something. You're talking BS.
Who do Moors descend from? I'm just asking you simple questions. And
what do you mean who we descend from? We're the Aboriginal Indigenous people. What do you mean who we descend from? What are you talking about?
Indigenous to what land?
Indigenous to the Americas.
Oh, but you're a free white person.
How am I a free white person when that's an act that came out in 1870 and I've been around before 1870? What are you talking about?
Man, you lost, my brother.
How you telling me that your son created you? Are you a dumbass? You're telling me that your son created you?
Look, ain't nobody created me but my ancestors. That's it.
Oh, so how you trying to tell me that you created your ancestors? But you're talking like you created your ancestors because you're talking crazy.
No, you act like somebody else created me and not my ancestors.
Your ancestors were in this land as Olmecs, who are known as Moors. That's not what we see.
How do you know?
What do you mean? How do we know? We just spoke.
So you're saying the Olmecs called themselves Moors?
We're saying that dark-skinned people are known throughout the world as Moors. The only people who don't want to accept that fact are the dumbasses in North America who've been colonized, because they want to be everything else in the book, but they don't want to be Moors. When everybody in the world knows that they're everything else in the book on top of being Moors. And the whole time that I'm here, my whole argument that you never answered is, why the hell are you going to tell me that you're everything? You're the Aboriginal, you're the Indigenous, you're the autochthonous, but when we bring up Moors, you're not that. How the hell are you not that? What do you mean? All those are the same thing. All those are the same thing.
The reason why I say I'm not a Moor,
see,
I did answer this question.
This is colonization right now.
Hold on now, Canaanland, hold on. You said I didn't answer the question, but I did. So I don't know if you didn't hear me or not. But the reason why I don't claim to be a Moor is because, for one, that's not what my family teaches. For two, that's not what our records say. And for three, if I claim Moor, then I'm claiming I'm a foreigner to this land.
No, that's your misassumption. You made that up. Moor doesn't mean that you're a foreigner to this land. What do you mean? How does Moor mean that you're a foreigner to this land when Moors are Aboriginal and Indigenous here? You're talking BS right now. You're playing. So if Moors are not, if you're saying Moors are not Indigenous, then you're agreeing that Moors are Indigenous. So if Moors are Indigenous, why are you telling me about some 1870? Moors were Indigenous before 1870. Were Moors Indigenous before 1870? What do you mean? What other landmass were they indigenous? What other landmass were they indigenous to before 1870?
Shit, wherever y'all came from.
No. So you're telling me that before 1870, Moors were indigenous to everywhere on the planet except America?
No, because you're saying...
No, hold on a second. Are you saying... No, hold on a second. Are you telling me that Moors were indigenous to everywhere else in the world except America before 1870?
Now, let me answer it. In the context that you say Moor means, trying to say Moor means a dark-skinned person, not every dark-skinned person is indigenous to America. Just like not every dark-skinned person is
So which foreigners were in America? Which foreigners not from America other than Europeans were in America before 1870 other than Moors and the people who were here?
Repeat your question again.
You said that the only dark-skinned people before 1870 were foreigners here. Right?
If you called
No, hold on a second. You said that the only dark-skinned people called Moors that were in the Americas before 1870 came from somewhere else. They weren't already here?
You guys came here as slaves.
When? How did we come here as slaves? How could we, hold on a second. How could we come here as slaves during the time when we had Europeans as slaves, as Moors?
Well, how? Okay.
No, hold on a second. Answer my question. During the time, because you're telling me that Moors came to America as slaves. So that means you would be talking about during 1492, because that's the only time that Europeans had enough courage to put boats in the water and come over here. Before that, there was no Europeans in the water other than dark-skinned people. No pale people were in the water.
Let me clarify this.
Because you haven't clarified anything all night. All you've been doing is denying the fact that you're a Moor. All you've been doing is denying the fact that you're a Moor. You don't even have enough. You don't even have enough.
Look what's happening. You're trying to impose a name on me.
No, I'm not imposing anything. You told me that you're dark skinned. What do you mean? You told me. Hold on a second. Okay. So let me ask you this question. So you said that you're light skinned. So are you light skinned because of Like, how are you light skinned if you're indigenous? Because you should be dark. Is there European in your blood?
Dark. If we're going to use correct
No,
grammar.
is there European? Is there European in you? No, is there European? Is there European in you? No, is there European in you? Simple. Is there European in you?
Go ahead.
Is there European in you? I'm asking you. Is there European?
No, I'm a red. No. There's no European in me. I'm a redskin.
Okay, so you're not a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, pale individual.
Oh, of course not.
All right. So if you're not, so hold on a second. So if you're not that, then that means you're dark, right? Compared to that.
No, I'm not dark.
No. So what do you mean? So what are you gonna say? You're what?
The meaning of dark. You wouldn't be calling me dark or call yourself dark. So no, I'm not dark. I'm a redskin. Just like that.
Okay. So if you're red skin.
I have hue. Oh, you know what? Use this word. Here's a word you can use. Just say hue. Somebody with hue. I have hue.
Okay. Moors are people with hue. Do you have hue?
Yeah, but I'm not no more.
How are you not a Moor if Moors are people with hue?
Because I'm a Muskogee.
What do you, that's a tribe. I'm not talking about tribe.
Yeah, but that's my tribe.
But that's a tribe. Tribes come out of nations, right? Tribes don't stand on their own. Tribes come out of nations, right?
Okay, well look.
No, hold on a second. So you said you're Muskogee. Hold on a second. You said you're Muskogee proudly, right? You just said that, right? Okay. And you agreed that was a tribe, right?
Well, Muskogee is a nation.
Oh, so now it's a nation. Oh, so now it's a nation. All of a sudden it's a nation. Okay. So what nation does that empire come out of? What empire does that nation called Muskogee come out of?
Well, Choctaw comes out of Muskogee. Muskogee is their own people.
No, but I asked you about an empire. What empire does that nation, that you say Muskogee, what empire does that come out of?
Do your research. Yes, do your research on Muskogee.
No, I'm asking you. You're Muskogee. I'm telling you I'm a Moor, and the empire, I'm telling you that I'm a Moor, and the empire I come out of is the Moroccan Empire. You're telling me that you're Muskogee. All right, if that's your nation, what empire do you come out of? Simple question.
How can you say Moor is an empire when
I didn't say Moor is an empire. I said Moroccan Empire. What do you mean? I said Moroccan.
You said Morocco is an empire?
I said Moroccan Empire. What do you mean?
Then you're not indigenous.
How am I not indigenous if this is Morocco? What are you talking about? Moroccan Empire. I didn't say the kingdom. I didn't say the kingdom of Morocco. I didn't say the kingdom of Morocco. I said Moroccan Empire. Moroccan Empire.
Moroccan Empire, because it's not here.
What do you mean? The Moroccan Empire extends over here, which is why Egyptians buried pharaohs here. What are you talking about? Well, obviously you don't. Obviously, you're stuck to what only your people taught you in their books of their history, whatever, and you don't know anything about what's going on around you. So, so carry on with your tribal. Carry on with your tribal. Carry on with your tribal. We get it. You know what I mean? You want to be everything but Moors. We tried to.
Yeah, because
no. I mean, it is what it is. You have your place. Appreciate you calling in, but we know that there's gonna be this going on because of European psychology with our people. And unfortunately, because I can accept the fact that I'm indigenous, and I can accept the fact that I'm Iroquois because that's my ancestry. I'm from the islands. I know that we're Iroquois. We have our own land and all that. I know that I never came over. I know I never came over here on a slave ship. I know I never came over. Yeah, but the Iroquois nation comes out of the Moorish nation. I know that as an Iroquois. What do you mean? I know that as an Iroquois. That's why I'm talking how I'm talking, because I know you people are crazy, because I know other people who are Aboriginal and Indigenous and part of a tribe that tell me and they agree that we're Moors. And we just want to say Islam to Brother Anor Majid for his book, We Are All Moors. You should probably go get that book.
Let me say this real quick. I don't hate you. I don't want you to.
No, I don't hate you. There ain't nothing about hate. I just know that this is where we're at as far as our people.
Yeah, but it's not that this is just where we're at. It's just
No, that's it. All you have to say, bro, is that you're a Moor. You couldn't even say that. You couldn't even say that. All right. So exactly. Proving my point. Proving my point. Because I know if you claim that you're a red bone or whatever, I know you're a Moor. Because you're not European. If you're not if you're red skin, if you're red skin, red bone, red color, whatever you're claiming, whatever adjective you're claiming as, that's who you are.
You can say whatever you want.
I know, no, red's adjective. I know red's adjective. You don't got to tell me that. I speak English. Red's adjective. That's not an identity. So if the claim is that you're gonna quickly claim red before you claim more, then you already let me know what's up. Give thanks for the build. It was good. And the family in the chat appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys. You know what I'm saying? I got much love for y'all, but y'all can't get upset when people choose to identify with their bloodline.
No, we're not. We don't. I don't have a problem with you. I have no problem with you accepting your bloodline. I have a problem with you not accepting that you're more because you're thinking you're not that. That's a problem. Because I know you're not European. You can't tell me you're not that if you're not European. From my studies, when I study the world, when I study, like I told you already, I already put it on the record, right? That we enslaved the Europeans. So don't tell me some BS about some relationship between Moors and Europeans like they were in some power position with us. What do you mean how we become slaves? Moors were never slaves like that. How are we slaves? How are we slaves when Europeans will tell you that it's the black Indians that they took and made slaves? Don't tell me any BS. That's why they trample and dig up your grave. That's why the European always lets it be known that the real Negroes or the real servants of the Europeans were people who were Aboriginal and Indigenous, because nobody got brought over here in no goddamn slave ship, because that's a fake story. So don't tell me anything about you're in North America. Because you're in California. You're in California, right? That means you're Mexico. Mexico is Aboriginal, Indigenous to the Moroccan Empire. But you're gonna play around. Khalifa, who California, where you're at, Khalifa, California, that's a Phoenician queen. Phoenicians are dark-skinned people who were over here way before some Europeans. And they had civilization here. And I'm sure they had sex with some Aboriginal and Indigenous people here. So don't tell me that you're just from over here only because of some whatever. We're all one people. And because of the fact that we're all one people, that's why we're supposed to be able to come to our common sense and realize what really ties us together. And it's the term that means land, water, air, people, and everything in between, more. If you don't want to be that, it's cool. We ain't worried about it. Do your thing. You know what I mean? Give thanks.
Just because we
No. You can't, because this is our platform. So it's not like, you want to be Moors, then do your thing.
Yeah, it is your
Peace and love, more. No, because, yeah, but, the issue is that we're pretty much done here. Give thanks.
Okay, well, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to the people that's listening, whether they agree or disagree with me. Thank you. That don't mean we all supposed to hate each other and shit like that. It's just, respect somebody else's heritage. Because, I'm not,
we're that's it. If you want to set up something else, we'll set up and we'll do something else. I got your number. But you probably have to go regroup, talk to your elders or something. Because
I gotta regroup. We're straight. I did that
all right.
With this conversation with you.
Okay, good. Peace and love, bro. So Islam Moors, if you enjoyed that, got to go downstairs and get my tonic right now. My tonic's downstairs waiting. So we'll build peace and love to all the Moors, Islam to all, and to all, don't forget tomorrow, 12, we got the live class going on, 12 noon right here, Canaanland Moors. Islam to all the Moors, and peace to all the Moors in the chat. Islam.